So after I went from high school dropout to GED to PhD, what did I really do? Was the PhD worthwhile? I have a video. You can watch that if you want that. But what have I done with myself? I will say time and time again that the experiences, the skill sets, the training, the knowledge of school psychologists opens the door for us to do so many different things beyond just working within the K-12 setting. The K-12 setting is a wonderful place for us to be grooming ourselves and our skills and for us to be able to really reach and work with students and change the course of their lives. However, there might be times where you want to look at something a little bit differently. You want to take a different twist on things, or you want to zoom out to a bigger picture. I've been really fortunate in my career to be able to do a lot of different pieces along that lines, and I'll kind of give you a little bit of a pathway that I followed. So for those of you who didn't watch the high school dropout GED to PhD video, feel free to go ahead and watch that. It gives you a little bit about my background and how I landed into the career of school psychologist. But in the meantime, I want to just talk about the opportunities that I've had in this field, and it's really been such a rich experience. So starting out, my first job as a school psychologist was in Pinellas County Schools in Florida. At that point, we were very much in the itinerant, wonderful director, wonderful organization as far as for student services, but we were very much still in the test in place scenario. We had 3 schools. At one point, I even had 5 schools because we were short-staffed. We did tons of testing. We could do some counseling. We could run some groups. It wasn't that we couldn't. It was just our role at that point. There's about 70 to 80 school psychologists. We also worked with educational diagnosticians who did a lot of the achievement testing, and I loved collaborating with them because they were so knowledgeable. They usually were reading specialists or math facilitators. So it was wonderful to be able to collaborate with them. We also collaborated on a team with social workers, and we would usually be at the schools on the same days. Again, wonderful team framework, but primarily it was working with pre-referral interventions, tracking how that went. It was before evidence-based practices necessarily were the key thing. It was truly then a teamwork focused at pre-referral before the testing piece. So I worked in Pinellas County Schools as a school psychologist for 6 to 7 years. Across that time period, my daughter was born. After my son being born during graduate school, I finished up my doctorate and had some great opportunities to do a lot of different kind of creative pieces there. Even the initial pieces of before it was response to intervention, when it was resistance to intervention, and some problem solving. Those really early frameworks of that piece there. About 6 or 7 years into working in Pinellas County Schools, I had the wonderful opportunity that was offered to me to be able to come and serve as a visiting assistant faculty in the school psychology program at USF, and I couldn't pass that down. It was a year of being able to test out what it's like to be fully academia. I took on some research projects. I functioned just like a new assistant faculty would function. I had amazing opportunities to be able to teach, to be able to nurture some of the first and second years future school psychologists going through the program. An amazing opportunity. As that year as a visiting professor was wrapping up, my family and I decided that we did actually want to relocate. We wanted to get away from the hurricanes that we had just been experiencing and get to someplace where we had a little bit of a mixed seasonal climate. We made the decision and we moved to the state of North Carolina, where then I transitioned to working back in the schools. I stayed at the school level and then also moved up more to a district level. So I was right there working with students, and then a few years later kind of pulled back out. I like to say I zoomed out because I wanted to be a little bit more at the district level, having a little bit more of an influence on the bigger picture of things. During that time period there, after about 4 years working at that capacity, I had another opportunity present itself to me where I was asked to be able to come be a project coordinator for a federally funded grant that was looking at problem solving within our school-wide positive behavior interventions and supports, or PBIS teams. It was an amazing opportunity, and I could not say no, especially to the people that were asking me to do this and the other people that I was able to collaborate with on that project. It was phenomenal. Amazing. As that ended, as any kind of funding does, I then transitioned, staying still big. Remember, I kind of am slowly zooming out. I was in the schools, district, and a little bit more at problem solving on a federally funded grant. Now, being so intrigued with putting practices in place, what does it take to put a practice, an evidence-based practice in place? I became very intrigued with the whole idea of implementation science. As the grant wound down, I had the amazing and fortunate opportunity to be able to then answer some of those questions by truly doing that work focused on implementation science. I made the transition then to being an implementation specialist at the National Implementation Research Network, or NIRN, at UNC Chapel Hill. I was very fortunate there to be have an amazing experience, and oh my gosh, I learned so much about what does it really take to take evidence-based practices, make them stick, make them scale, make them to we can sustain them so they're feasible, so we can sustain them. I'm so excited to be able to share some of these in the school psych lens for you in another video. However, during that time period, I also had a fortunate opportunity to be able to be a co-director of the State Implementation and Scaling Up of Evidence-Based Practices Center in our third funding cycle of that, which was funded by the Office of Special Education Programs. Again, SISUP. It was a project within NIRN, National Implementation Research Network, which is way more than you actually have to know. But the idea is that was focused just on education systems, how we make them strong and durable so that they can support evidence-based practices. So now I am so zoomed out, right? A lot of things started also happening at that point, and I realized I had to shift myself. Life happens. I need to reprioritize be focused much more on my family. At that point then, I made a really steep swoop back in and returned to the role of a school psychologist. And I worked in a different state this time, which had a very different approach to how school psychologists work. Not exactly aligned with my whole way of thinking and training. So it was a tough transition for me. Much more paperwork focused, much more compliance focused than I had previously been, which was a real tough, I have to say, the adjustment, maybe if I had been from school psych to that position, had been different, but because I had been zoomed out so much and then to get into that piece, it was a very tough transition for me. I then also transitioned to a lead position where I was able to nurture other school psychologists and the team and build that smaller system to be able to help that role do what we know it should be doing. Also during that time period, then I did a little bit of a step back again, worked more at the systems level again, worked at a nonprofit level, and working on some evidence-based practices and really helping getting those trained and coached and put in place. All that to say, school psychology is amazing. I'm currently back working as a school psychologist because it's in your blood, right? I feel like I've had so many different salt and pepper and some paprika and oregano, and I'm not a cook, so I'm just rattling spices off the top of my head. There's probably some much better ones that could fit in here better. But the idea is I've had so many of these different parts and pieces that every time I've come back to be able to work in the schools, I feel like there's a different part of me now that sees things a little bit better. I feel like I've lost some of my greenness, come from maybe being jaded. There was times when I'm jaded. I'm sure if you've been in the field, you get that. Now to be able to kind of think through, how do we work through that? What are some of the best things? What do we really want to do? We have to be leading from behind. We can't be driving. We have to be sharing ownership and being more collaborative and having everyone together on the same page so we're not filtering and fragmenting. So many cool things that I think are so critical for our work in schools, and our career, our training has us as the right people to be leading and doing this work. And I'm so excited to be able to be here with all of you, to be able to think through this, talk through this, to be able to get our voices at the right time on the table, to be able to contribute to making better futures for everyone. If you're excited about this, please join me, subscribe just so you know when I upload videos. please hit the like button just so I also know that you're there and you're interested and maybe you're on the edge of your seat. And almost more importantly, what I would love is to hear from all of you. Please leave comments, thoughts, feedback, ideas, content. I have a whole list of other videos that I want us to start putting out there to be able to talk together. Everything from what makes an effective, efficient team. What do we do when during difficult meetings? What do we do when we're overwhelmed? What are some efficient ways that we can navigate the fact that we have all these reports to do, all this paperwork to be able to do? I have some tricks on how to be able to do some of this, but I also know that all of you are going to make all of this even better. And I'm just so excited to be able to go on this journey with all of you. So I'm going to link a whole bunch of stuff down below. Please just go ahead and leave some thoughts and comments. And I look forward to being able to hearing from all of you and going together on this journey so we can just keep making things better and better for each and every. Thanks.